What's going on, guys? Shooting Dave here. So good to see your faces. Hope you're all having a great week and welcome back to the channel. Now, with coronavirus being rife and everything being on lockdown, I thought I'd have a little challenge for you guys. So if you are following me on Instagram, you would have seen that I posted a light painting editing challenge where I am going to give away some of my raw files to you guys so you can edit them and I can kind of review them and see how we got on. So that way you guys might learn something. If you haven't light painted before, maybe this is a great way to learn how to edit those photos. You can also get some feedback from me, and then I can also learn by figuring out how people edit and what their editing tastes are and learning what I could have done differently. What's up, guys? Editing Dave here. Now, I know the temptation is going to be to jump forwards and find your photo so you can see my review of it. However, I implore you guys to stick with it and watch the video all the way through. There is plenty of cool photographers in there and lots of tips and tricks that I'm giving away on editing. So make sure you stick with it. And also, you might find some cool photographers to follow on Instagram, and who doesn't want to follow more cool content? So yeah, stick around. Oh, and if you guys are interested in finding out more about editing and light painting and photography in general, then please do consider subscribing because I have loads and loads of tutorials on my channel. Anyway, back to the video. See ya. So these are the light painted raw files that I gave away. They are of Tony's Datsun 240Z that I shot for Japanese Performance magazine back in May of 2019. So they've been out for a while, they've done their circulation, and now I figured, well, why not share them with the rest of you guys, and let's see how you guys got on with editing. So, let's jump straight into this. Okay, so first up we have Alan from AD Photo. Now, this is a nice looking example. Let's just go in and have a little closer look at what we got here. So first off the bat, I really like the way the car is lit. It's looking pretty nice. Personally, I would have tried to clean up this little hot spot here on the front fender. To me, that doesn't really do the car any favours, and it kind of makes the paint look a little bit muddy, so I really wouldn't want to include that there. I like what you've done with the background. The background has enough light in it and life in it that it really shows what's going on. You've kept some of the pallets and boxes behind the car. That looks great. The front of the car may be a tad little open. You can see into the engine bay, so there's some great detail in there, but for me it's a little too open, so I probably would have dialed that down a little bit. One thing to look at when combining layers for the paint is look at the paint consistency. So you want to make sure that paint holds its colour pretty much all the way through. So where you've got this lovely golden highlight down the side of the car, it kind of tapers off towards the front. Now maybe you recovered some of those highlights and that probably caused it to, you know, change a little bit, and so I'll just look at matching those tones a little bit more. As for the bonnet, it looks a little bit blue and hazy here. There's some sort of strangeness going on in the center of the hood, so I'd probably look at darkening that down. It is black, so you don't be afraid to let it go to a bit more black. And yeah, just on the rim of the car, there is some recovered highlights here and some places where different passes have been masked through. So I'd look at tidying up the masks a little bit. But overall, that's a really nice effort. I really like how it looks. It's very similar to the way I shot it. So yeah, can't argue with that too much. Okay, next one. So the next one is Alonzo of Alonzo Truman on Instagram. He's gone for a very dark and moody edit here. The paint looks super nice and rich. We've got a lovely shut down background, and he's really made good use of the tail light exposure, bringing out the red light against those crates in the background. That looks nice. I really like how he's handled the floor here. He's taken some of that horrible orange saturation out of it and given it some quite nice tones in there, so that's looking really good. Great use as a shadow as well. Really like how that works. It's nice and accentuated, and he chose not to bring the headlight pass onto the floor as well, which for this instance I think is the right call. So if we go in and have a little bit closer look, see the hood is nice and jet black, but it still brings out some of the details. I like that. The rim light is nicely handled. Yeah, all across the top's looking really good. The paint looks lovely and rich, and that's actually pretty accurate to how it looks, so I'm happy with how that's going. Not sure I love this highlight on the front fender. Probably would have changed that for something else, or you know, cloned it out and then painted in to continue this line down to the front fender. But, you know, I don't hate it at all. I actually quite like it, so that's pretty nice. There's good darkness on the tyres as they meet the ground as well. That looks good. The front has plenty of a light on it, showing that carbon fibre in the front splitter, so that's really nice. I like the way that works. He hasn't gone too far and opened up the front grille. You can actually see inside it a little bit as well, which is really nice. And if we come back out, yeah, overall, I really like that. That's a really nice effort. So yeah, good work on that one. Moving on. Our next entry is from Amanda, or 350 chick on Instagram. Now, she claims that she hasn't used Photoshop for a long time and has never ever edited a light painted photo. So if you haven't edited a light painted photo, then go on my YouTube channel. There's plenty of tutorial in there which show you how I go through the process. So this is her first attempt, so let's have a look at this. Now, overall, she's opened up the background a lot more, so this looks like pretty nice, pretty natural. You can see where she's blended some of these layers in to get different reflections down the side. Now this kind of makes it kind of shows off how bad or inconsistent my lighting can be down the side, so you can see the different passes coming through here. But if we ignore that for 1 second, I really like how the paint looks. The paint looks lovely and rich, very vibrant. This is a much different style to everyone else's. It's much more open and well lit. So I like that. There is some obvious streaking up here from the different passes of light painting that has gone through. So I would look at tidying up the masks a little bit on those areas. You can basically just paint away the bits you don't need just using a layer mask, and that will solve that. Down the front, let's have a look down here. On the front splitter, personally for me, there's too many reflections going on, so I probably would have chosen 1 or 2 maybe different lighting passes where the front fender, or sorry, the front splitter looks as good as it possibly can. But yeah, I mean, overall, it's a good effort. There are some areas around the car where you can see there's a bit of haloing going on there, so again, look at tightening up those masks a little bit. But overall, it looks really good. And honestly, Amanda, if you're struggling with this kind of thing, then it might be worth like learning the pen tool and learning how to make a nice mask around the car. Then you can actually just get rid of these light streaks in the top. If you don't want to have those, you could take one of the layers, use it as a background, and if you wanted more light in there, then I know there's a few different raw files that have more light on the background, and that would have just saved you having to have these light streaks across the top. So for a first try, gotta say, hats off, well done. Okay, moving on. Andreas, and here's your screen name. Ooh. Now, I really like the mood of this. You've actually pushed a lot of magenta, a bit of blue into the shadows. So straight off the bat, you've got that kind of like cool magenta look with a nice warm from the brake lights in there. That really sets the mood nicely. The floor, you haven't lightened it too much so it doesn't distract away from the car. And you've handled the shadow really well as well. That looks really good. Over here, I can actually tell you that I struggled when editing this one. So you've got the shadow, then a bit of light, then it fades into the darkness. So that was always a bit of struggle for me, and I think you haven't struggled, you've done a nice job, so I like the way that looks. This area here is brighter than down here and behind the car, so I maybe would have dragged it down a little bit just to balance it out a little bit more. As for the car, the paint looks stunning. This has to be probably my favourite looking paint out of the lot so far. It looks super rich and super vibrant. I love the way that all looks. You've kept some of the red bounce from the tail lights into the back of the car, so you can see it a little bit bleeding up onto the roof and onto the C-pillar as well, so that's really, really nice. Man, that paint looks great. Wheels look great, contact patches look great as well. Front fender's nicely handled. The front indicator over here looks to me like you've had some sort of recovered highlights or something in there, so I probably would have balanced the colour out a little bit in there, but that looks pretty good on the front. Other than that little indicator, I maybe would have, I'm really nitpicking here, but I would have maybe done something different with that. The front grille, you shut that down and there's nothing wrong with that, so you can't see into the engine bay, but you can still make out those louvers, so that looks really nice. And this is what I'm talking about for the hood. Look how nicely controlled this is. There's a nice light pass in there, not making too much of a big deal out of the hood, but keeping enough of the detail in there so you know what's going on and it doesn't look like a black hole, and also doesn't have huge white streaks going through it, so that's really nice. I think the interior's handled well as well. You've darkened down the reflections through the windows as well, so that's nice. So this is a great mood and really, really nice, and I love the way that paint looks. It's, oh, that's just perfect. You got a buddy of mine, Ben, from Ben Gout Photography. This is completely different. Completely different. I love what he's done here. He's got like, not only has he taken my car, my shot, and moved it into a completely different environment, but the environment tonally actually matches the car as well, which I think is great. So really nice work on that, Ben. You've got like these oranges and browns into the background, which are then reflected by the car as well. So it complements that car's paint. So that's a great look. I really like the way you've done that. You've also boosted the brake lights onto this new environment as well. So you've got like the red from the tail lights being cast as well. So that's great. So let's go in and have a little look at the car and see how you got on with the car. Okay, so it looks like you may have cloned out some sort of reflection on the door and into the rear fender. That to me could have been blended a little bit nicely. You've also got a bit of a ghost here from a different light pass as well, so I would have tidied that up a little bit more. But the rear fender and the rear wheel arch looks nice. You've got good contrast in there. Wheels look great. Front fender looks great as well. Really like how that looks. As again, it does look like you've cloned out something of some of the reflections down the side of the car. So if you're going to do that, if you're going to paint over the solid colour, then make sure you just add a little bit of noise into it as well, so it beds into the image a little bit more, rather than just painting straight over the top, because you've got this like super clean piece of paintwork here, and then when you get to the real paint as well, you can see there's a bit of noise in here. So if we zoom in quite a lot, you can see how smooth this is. So just adding that little bit of noise in there will kind of help you bed that over paint back into the original paint. That's a lot of paints. So let's come back out and have a little look more. If I'm being really nitpicky, looking under the front tyre here, you could have worked on the contact patch a little bit more. So just basically get a nice elliptical brush, fill it with black, and just put it underneath the car and just draw it onto the background, and that will help add like a fake contact patch down to the ground. So that will look really nice. Headlights look great. You've taken some blue out of the LEDs. I quite like that. The front, really quite nicely handled actually. So you've just kept a little bit of the gloss lines from the light painting in the front fender. In the front splitter. That looks nice. The front grille as well. You've got just the right amount of detail in there. So that looks really good. Did you path it? It looks like you pathed out the rear window. The side window, so you can actually see through the car into your background. So again, top marks are doing that. But overall, Ben, I really like that. That is some great work. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, moving on, we now have Brian. Now, Brian again has gone for another compositing. I love the fact that you guys have gone straight into compositing and swapping out the background. There's nothing wrong with doing that, and I know that Alex McKenzie from 85mm used to do it a lot. Personally, I've never really done it, but maybe I should. This is what I'm talking about. Like, I'm learning from you guys as well. You guys are showing me that swapping out backplates is a good idea, so maybe I should look at doing that in the future. So first of all, love the mood, love that nighttime sky as well. You got some stars in there. Not sold on the moon, but hey, whatever, it looks cool. You've gone and desaturated the ground. Why not? You swap the background, so do whatever you want there. So I really like the background. But let's jump in and have a little look at the car. Right. First of all, for me, paint colour. The paint has a little bit too much magenta in there. Now, I know you swapped the background, and who's to say that there wasn't a heavy magenta cast in there affecting how the paint looks. But if you're doing this for a magazine or for a brochure or for a client, then sometimes maintaining colour accuracy on the paint is a big deal. So I would personally just like to see some more of that orange come back, but I understand that overall the image is very blue and magenta, so that is going to affect the paint. So maybe I'm wrong, and maybe that's the way it should be. You've also tinted the wheels slightly blue as well, so maybe this leads me to believe that your overall grade was done at the end rather than to the car, but I like the way that happens. The front one looks a little bit too saturated for my taste, given the blue levels on the rest of the car, but that looks really nice. Paint looks great. I can see that you've chosen a few different lighting passes down the side, and the telltale areas for me are on the front fender. You've got this hot white highlight going across the roll line. You've got a slightly ghosted one underneath, and then you've got this much softer one, which leads me to believe that you may have cloned it out or over-painted that area. So if you can, just try and look at using one light painting pass for the side of the vehicle. It can be panel by panel if that works, but for me personally, I'd rather just get the side of the car lit with one light paint pass to avoid that kind of banding effect that you get into it. But yeah, real nice. I like the fact that you've taken out the reflections out the door as well. I feel that's done nicely well. The hood, this side looks really good. Over here you can see where there's some recovered highlights, so the hood is black, so if you wanted to remove some of those highlights rather than just dialing them down and getting this kind of strange grey artifacting, just paint it black, just get rid of it, just bed it in, just add some noise onto it afterwards and it'll match what's lying underneath. Rim of the car looks good, the front of the car looks good, roof looks nice. You've even cut through the windows, which is nice, so good work on that, nice eye for detail. Contact patches look good. Just wondering about the floor versus the tyre tread, because the tyre's been rolling around on that floor, so it's going to pick up some dust and debris. So for me, it looks a little green on the floor, but on the tyre it looks a little orange. So I probably would have balanced those two colours together a little bit. So sampled one, made sure it's consistent with the other one. But yeah, other than that, that's fine. Really like that image. Love the backplate. So yeah, great job. Nice one, Brian. Okay, so now we have another buddy of mine, Dan from Dan Martin Media. Now this is his first time light painting or editing a light painted photo. So let's have a look at this. I really like the background on this one. This kind of, for me, is one of the nicer handled backgrounds that from the actual location. To me, this kind of feels like Need for Speed when you're kind of selecting a vehicle. It's a really, really cool background. I like the way you've opened it up so you can see some details, see some depth in there. You've neutralized the ground, which looks really great. You've kept all these containers and everything well lit and well illuminated, so I really like the way that's been handled. You've kept some of the red cast from the tail lights on the back wall as well. That's nice. For me, I would have maybe done something a little bit different with the shadow. You've got like a soft and diffuse shadow that goes around, but there seems to be like a line over this side around the car. So yeah, just tidy up the shadow a little bit, Dan. Personally, I really like how your background's looking, and with a more refined shadow or more tidy shadow, that'll really look nice. So let's jump in and have a little look at the car. So the paint here is looking really nice. This front area here on the front fender looks like it's on fire. There's so much vibrance in there, and that's really, really nice. And then it goes quite quickly into like a dark, rich orange, and I love the way that's looking. For me, there's one thing, Dan, that's letting you down, and that's just over by this door here. You see where you've got like a break in the highlight here, and it looks like it's been recovered, or you look like you've stripped in a different part. For me, I would have just loved to have seen you got the clone stamp or the healing tool out and just fix that area, just continue that line all the way through. For me, that would have really like tidied over this image and made it look really, really nice. And that, to me, I'm being a nitpick here. That is the only piece that I can see that is letting you down on the paintwork, and maybe towards the rear fender here, you've got like a break-in reflection as it reaches the rear spoiler. But ultimately, if you've never done this before, you're doing a great job. You've also made the hood. Now, this might be a creative choice by you, but you've made the hood like a grey, like a very, very dark grey. Now, it's actually black, but you weren't there, you weren't to know that. So if you've chosen to go with this light, dark grey, then I like that. That's a nice look. For me personally, there's too much light coming in through that front grille, but that's a personal preference. So whether you wanted to keep that or not, that's up to you. But for me, it's just too much. The front splitter looks great. I really love how that's handled. The far side of the car doesn't pop off the background too much as well, so you haven't overlit it there. So I think that's really nice. So yeah, Dan, well done. Great job. So we've got a David. Good, strong name. Hello, David. So David E. Sukra, Instagram handles here. So you've completely done away with the background. I don't think there's actually any information in there. We can check this. Let's just dump a curves on here and just lift up the blacks. No, you've completely removed the background. So nice choice. It's kind of like a studio. So you've gone for this smoky vibe, and I think that's actually quite nice. I like the way that's done. You got this nice moody and dynamic looking shadow with this like pool of light. Now that's what I like. Single light source on the background, really illuminating it quite nicely. Nice little vignette. So I like the way your background looks. Let's have a look at the car itself. Hood looks great straight off the bat. Front fender, just the right amount of detail coming through. Really like that. Sorry, I keep calling it front fender. Front splitter, that looks really nice. Just the right amount of detail coming through on that. You've been nicely controlled with the rim light on here as well, so it doesn't pop off the background too much. Let's look at the paint down the side. You've got this lovely orange and yellow vibrancy going on there. That looks really nice. Some of this looks like it's probably been cloned or something like that. So like I was saying earlier, just be wary of repeating patterns. You can kind of tell there's little blotchiness, and there's actually like smudges in the paint up here being cloned over and over and over again. So for me, that's the only thing that's really letting it down, but I really like the way that looks. Also, the rear wheel looks a little bit bright for my taste. I probably would have balanced it a bit closer towards the front. I know the light is coming from the rear of the car, so the rear wheel would be brighter, but personally, I would have just toned it down and matched the vibrancy and the tonality of the front wheel. But other than that, I really like the way it looks. Great, solid image. Nice work, David. Moving on, we have Dillon, old Curry guy 543 from South Africa as well. What up, South Africa? So let's have a look at his image. So the background, let's have a look here. I like all these crates and boxes. This is looking pretty nice. You've got some good detail in there. Would have removed that cabinet. I think that's going to be a common theme for anyone that's stuck with the original background. For me, the headlight pass looks a little aggressive on the floor. The colour cast from the headlights is very blue and teal, and you've got like almost like a magenta background. So I probably would have balanced them a little bit in colour. That would have probably made that look a bit easier. Looking at the car, like from 100% out all the way out here, the front looks too open for me. So I like the sides of my car to be brighter than the front, and the front just to be kind of controlled and refined. And for me, the front splitter just looks way too bright. It's black weave carbon fibre, and it's gone a bit grey and nuclear through there. So you could have masked out that area and just dragged down the exposure a little bit on that. And again, there's a bit too much light coming in through the front grille for me. And this area of the front of the car here, where the far side headlight and the indicator is a little bit bright compared to the background behind it. So I would have darkened that down. So if you just darken the front of the car down a little bit, I feel like that would have actually helped bed it in a little bit more, and it'll be more pleasing to look at. So let's go in and have a look at the paint. So down the side of the car, okay. Some nice looking reflections there. I like the way the paint looks. That looks nice and rich, and definitely that vintage 1970s vibe from the Datsun 240Z. So really nice work there. You got a couple of extra reflections going on in the front fender. Probably would have cleaned those up. Wouldn't have been my choice of highlight to choose down the side of the car. I think there would have been ones that are higher up on the fender and following the roll lines a little bit more, rather than going through the center of that panel. But if that's the one you like, then that's the one you like. But for me, I would have chosen a different one. But around the rear of the car, the rear spoiler looks great, rear wheel looks good. Probably would have chosen a different pass for the rear over fender as well. That one has this like weird white splodge here, which doesn't look very nice. And this kind of reflection here doesn't really continue on anywhere. So for me, I would have chosen something different. And the same on the front fender as well. Actually, I just noticed there's this big white highlight in there that I probably would have taken out. So just be a bit more thoughtful about what passes you use for wear on the car, because like the front of the hood looks good. It looks like you have double reflections going on the far side of the fender, so I probably would have chosen a different rim light. But overall, a solid effort, pretty good, but with some minor adjustment, I think you can get it to be a bit better. Nice work, Dillon. So moving on, we have Ed from Norway. I met this guy on a road trip a couple of years ago, so it's a super nice guy, and it's nice to have him actually edit one of my photos for a change. So looking at this, he's gone for a bit more of a classic look. It's kind of shut down, not overstated, not overlit. It's kind of moody. He's basically kept the background there, but dropped it down. You've got some soft light here, so it's like a barn door may have been opened, or is it a soft spotlight coming through? And I quite like that effect on the ground. Going in, having a look at the car. It's very, very controlled on the rim light. It's just used a slight hint of light over there rather than blasting it with light. And that's actually quite a nice effect. I'm not seeing many people do that. For the front indicators down here, I'd be waresome and cautious of recovered highlights. They kind of go a bit grey and a bit flat. So I probably would have done something a bit different with that. Maybe put a bit more vibrance into it. You can keep the exposure level, but just pump up the vibrance. Front splitter looks really nice. Front grille looks good. The paint looks really nice and rich, so you've really kept it in the front fender. I like how that looks. Down the side is nice and clean. The rear over fender looks pretty good. I maybe would have chosen a different pass for that one and masked it out. And the front one as well, you got two light streaks going through it, and I would have preferred, personally, just to see one. But other than that, Ed, that's a really solid job. Nice work. Okay, we have Eva. I used to work with Eva VFX 3D. Now, she's never done a light painted car. She's done plenty of CG cars before, but never a light painted photo car in her life. So let's have a look at this. Background looks nice and controlled. I like what's going on here. Probably would have darkened this area over here and blended it with the shadow a little bit, but that's okay. There's a nice amount of detail in the background, so I'm okay with that. So let's go in and have a look at the car itself. Okay, yeah. Nice amount of rim light. The hood, it looks nicely controlled. It looks like you may have painted out something in the center of the hood. That may have been a stray reflection. It just looks a bit on the messy side, so I probably would have chosen a different pass maybe for the hood if it wasn't doing the thing that you wanted. You probably could have brought out these louvers a little bit more. Maybe thought they looked distracting. That's up to you. But it looks to me like there's a big black splodge here in the middle of the hood, so I probably would have dialed that up or down. Dialed that down a little bit, or just again chosen a different pass. The front splitter looks nice, but one thing I would say is like you got this nice richness over this side, but it gets a bit faded and a bit washy out on that side. And also, whilst we're talking on this side of the car as well, it looks quite jarring how well lit this side of the car is compared to the shadow. So either lighten up the background behind it, or darken, or let this side of the car darken down a little bit more so it doesn't look like it's popping off so much. The rest of the car, the side of the car looks pretty good. You got this nice like flare going on the front fender. That's pretty cool. The wheels look nice as well. Like how that looks. Got some nice continuous highlights going on through here. One thing to note, I mean, it's not wrong, but for me, I'm not the biggest fan of it, is when the car reflects its environment too much. Of course, you want to keep some of that in, but right here on this right fender, it's reflecting what's going on in these crates and boxes behind the car. So I probably would have clone that out. I know that probably would have came from the key light frame, so I probably would have gone with something where there was a cleaner exposure there and just painted it through so it's not so reflective over there. But if that's something you like, then by all means keep it in there. Looking back out here again, I really think the front far side of the car could have been done with like darkening down. And also your background looks to be about 1 to 2/3 of a stop underexposed compared to the car, because your car's quite well lit, and you always want to keep them kind of in the same sort of realm so they don't look like that one's stuck on top of the other. But other than that, Eva, solid effort, nice job. Keep cracking on, it's looking good. Okay, now we have Jackie, or Jello Dang, on Instagram. I know this guy, I've been following this guy's work. He's a very talented light painter and photographer himself, so I'm being super stoked about what he's done with my image, and this is a completely different vibe. I really like how this looks. Again, this kind of plays back to the need for speed, and this is maybe something, a direction I should be pushing myself into a little bit more. Completely different from everyone else. He's not lit it from the far right, he's actually lit it from the far left, and I actually really like that. I didn't think about doing that myself, but I love the way it looks. You got this like nice like soft light coming in here, like a flare in the background. That looks really cool. Really like your use of the headlight pass as well. You haven't tried to combine it with a shadow pass, so they're not competing too much, so they're much closer in tonality. That looks really cool. So let's go in and have a look at the car. I think you're the first person that's done this though. Like you've lit the car nicely from this side and then let it fall off to darkness towards as it reaches around towards the camera. And that's really nice. I really like that. You've done a great job creatively on that. And the paint looks exceptionally well handled. I don't know which pass you chose. I'm going to have to go back through my raws and have a look at this, but I really like the way you've done the paint on that. Yeah, that is really, really nice. This might be one of my favourites so far. I'm going to give you one critique because I have to. I probably would have darkened down the far side indicator. See how different this near side one looks. And this one's quite bright. I know that you've lit it from that side, but I probably would have just darkened it down a little bit. So not so it's the same as the near side one, but just so it's a little bit closer. Man, I really like that. That is really, really nice. Well done, Jackie. We have another James, Jimmy Lee Photography, another guy that I know of Instagram. And so let's have a look at this. Very moody background. Arguably, possibly a little bit too moody because the car kind of pops a little bit too much off of it. So I prefer to have the car in the background live a little bit closer in the same realm rather than be so different from each other. It's a stylized look and some people like it, but for me personally, James, I probably would have either brightened up the background or darkened down the car just so they balance out a little bit, because as you can see, the ground is being reflected in the side of the car as well, and you can see it's much, much brighter than what is actually here. So look to control that. So if you're going to darken the background, make sure you can darken down the reflections as well, so it kind of feels connected in some sort of way. But let's go in and have a look at the car. So again, yeah, I think you would have sold in the look of a much moodier background if you darkened down the front of the car. There's a lot of light coming in through the front grille, so I probably would have darkened that down along with the front splitter as well. The rim light's pretty nice as well. Definitely would have chosen a different light pass for the hood. These reflections just look a little bit messy. I know it's a challenging light pass to use, and it's a very oblique angle, so it is actually quite difficult to light and then find a nice pass, but I would have perhaps looked for a different one. Interior is nicely handled. The roof, Looking in above the top of the window, it looks a little bit desaturated in there, like it's lost some contrast. Maybe that was due to a flare or something, so I probably would have corrected that a little bit, so add some more contrast back in there. But the side of the car looks really good. I like the way this rear three-quarter panel looks. That's nice. The door looks good. The car probably was a little bit scruffy in terms of its paint, so maybe that might also be something you've done by cloning out. So it's either or, but I probably would have chosen something different for the front fender. But on the whole, James, that's pretty nice. But yeah, I would have balanced the car a little bit more to the background. Jamie from Jamie Takes Photos. This is actually pretty cool. So staying away from the stark high contrast look and not really including a shadow, he's opened up the floor a little bit more. And that's a pretty cool effect. It's personally not one I would have gone for. I quite like those hard, long shadows, but this works pretty nicely. Let's have a look if there's any problem areas around the contact patches, because I think, yeah, there might be around the rear tyre. I probably would have either brushed or lightened or chosen a different pass for just underneath the rear tyre here, because you've got this lovely soft ambient reflection going around the car, and it works really well around the front fender and around the front wheel, but around here it just looks a little bit neither here nor there. And I don't know if you've actually painted in a contact patch or not, but it looks like it could have been cleaned up a little bit at the back. But anyway, let's look at the car. So nice, soft and even lighting across the front. This actually looks pretty nice. I like the way that's been handled. The hood, again, see, this is a nice example of the hood. This is really well handled. The rim light's fine. And the side of the car, I really like what you've done with the paint as well. Maybe it's the same one that Jackie from Jello Dang chose. The paint looks really quite good in there, so I like how that looks. Yeah, solid work, Jamie. Nice work. So now we have Karaka, or Crocs GT350. I hope I'm pronouncing your name wrong. So we've got actually a very Richard Pardon-esque style going on here. So I actually really like this graphic element to the background. That looks super cool. Yeah, that's really nice. And I know it's 2D, but you've actually got some depth in there as well. That looks pretty cool. So I really like the way you've handled that. That's some nice work. Nice desaturation of the ground as well. So that's looking pretty cool. Let's come in and have a little look at the car a bit closer. Wow, yeah, the car is actually really well handled. Side of the car looks really nice, really clean. There's a few little spots, just one here and here, where it looks like it could have been blended a little bit differently. I don't know if you're brushing out a pass or whether you're darkening down a highlight or something, but just look at tidying those up a little bit, because to me that's the only thing that's letting your front fender down, is just those little elements there. I would have defined the shadow a little bit more on the rear tyre as well, the way it leaves the rear tyre. Shadows are sharper the closer they are to something. As they get away, they get softer, and to me it's just a little too soft. So it's a very simple fix. I would have gone with a pen tool and just drawn a line and a curve and just sharpened up that shadow. You see how sharp it is around the front of the car, so I would have looked to just match that between the two. Front of the car looks really nice, really simplistic, enough detail in there that you can see what's going on. The hood looks great as well. I just noticed one thing that you forgot to mask out, and that is through the passenger window over here. You can still see the old background, so I would have maybe just masked that out so you can actually punch straight through to this like graphic background that you've created. But yeah, I like it. It's very different, very creative. So nice work, Karaka. Great work. Damn! Okay, we have Linden from Lenses and Wheels. Now this is really cool. Gone for a full-on burnout, and you've even motion blurred the background as well, so it's like it's actually doing a donut and the camera's kind of following the car around with it. That's really cool. I like the fact you've got a trail of smoke that kind of arcs around the car. That's really nice, and man, that burnout around here, that looks super dope. You even have it reflecting in the paint. Yeah, that's some nice work there, Linden. I really like the way that works. Super cool. Probably would have you've spun the tyre tread nicely, but I probably would have spun the inside of the wheel a little bit more. You can just see some of the spokes here, so you probably could have cloned those out as well if you wanted, just to fool us a little bit more. But yeah, that's really cool. Oh man, you've even got particles being picked up by the headlights. That's cool. See, these are small details that people don't notice, but it's really, really nice. Let's have what else to comment on, man. That's such a wild change. You've even put tyre tracks in there as well. Man, that is cool. I'm going to give you one piece of criticism here. You've got a very hard shadow, and if you're rotating, that shadow would have been a bit softer. So I probably would have taken that shadow as a guide and then motion blurred it a little bit, so you set in that kind of movement into there, so that soften up that shadow. But yeah, that looks really cool. You've gone in a completely different direction with people in terms of overall editing, but also your paint as well. Almost looks like a bit like chocolate, like you could eat it. Looks super nice. I probably would have liked to see a little bit of more of the burnt orange metallic flake coming back through on the paint, but that is a really, really cool effort. Oh, you've even put a driver in there as well. Sick. Yeah, Linden, that's awesome. Yeah, nice work, Linden. Great job. Okay, we have Martin M. Nick Photography. Now, I happen to know that he made this entire background. So not only is it a composited shot, but he made the background in Blender, which is a 3D application. And for those of you who don't know, I'm an automotive artist myself, but I use 3ds Max, so I appreciate people making backgrounds and dumping cars into there. So that looks really cool. I like the vibe you got. You got these like LED strips or neon strips that are illuminating the water or the ground or whatever it is around. That looks really nice. Got this lovely, gorgeous sun flare going on in the background, and this really stark geometric background, which is really, really cool, considering the car is so voluptuous and like rounded. So let's go in and have a little look at your editing on the car. Paint looks really nice. I like the way the wheels look. You've even put a totally different shadow in there. That's really cool. You've actually got a double shadow as well. That's pretty nice. The front splitter looks super cool. It's a bit contrasty for my liking and taste. It looks like it's been sharpened quite a bit, but other than that, that's really cool. I like the fact you actually have some colour cast from your new background being reflected into the front splitter. So that's really cool. Nice detail there. Front hood, the hood looks really nice. I like the way that looks. Rim light nicely handled. Again, with some colour cast coming from the environment. That's really cool. So that's key, especially with CG. You want to balance images in together. So yeah, that's really cool. I like the fact you've got like a fake reflection coming from the background as well. That's nice, and you've punched through the windows into your background. Really good job. Yeah, Martin, that's nice. I like that a lot. Great work. Moving on. Okay, we have Matt from Matthew Mackey East. He actually used to be a retoucher with me at Taylor James, so I know this guy well. I used to sit pretty close to him, and him and I used to play darts together. So let's have a look at what he's done. Now, he's gone for this like super atmospheric kind of film noir kind of vibe to it, and I like the way that's looking. The environment is really nice. So yeah, that's really cool. You can tell when a decent retouch has been on it. They kind of know how to balance all the elements together. For me, the colour grade as well is a little too teal in front, but that's just a personal preference. I love the way the paint looks, and actually there's something he's done completely different here that other people have overlooked, is he's actually chosen really quite a nice key light down the side of the car with those light streaks on the paintwork. That's really nice. But he's also picked up on this swage line down the side of the car and darkened everything below that as well, which tucks the car in, making it look much more aggressive and much more of that like Coke bottle effect. So that's really nice. I love the way that's done. Good choice of reflections on the front and rear over fenders as well. The wheels look nice. Great job on there. And the front is just, yeah, that's exceptionally well balanced. I like the amount of light you got coming through here. That's super nice. The hood as well, that's a nice choice of reflections on there. I love the way the louvers look. You're actually taking a wider pass, which I don't think many people use. I definitely didn't use it, but I actually like the way you've brushed it in. So you've got this kind of like soft rim light effect going on, which, yeah, I didn't think to achieve that. That looks pretty nice. I like the way that looks. Yeah, headlights look great. There's the nice and bright with still plenty of detail going on. The atmospherics look just right as well, being highlighted by the headlights as well, so they're not just stuck on over a dark background. They're actually interacting with the headlights as well, which I think's great. You've even coloured the smoke as the tail lights are illuminating it as well. So, yeah, man, that's really nice. I like that. Good job, Matt. So now we have Nick from Nick Shoots Stories, a guy I do believe is from Ireland or Northern Ireland. Sorry, Nick, if I got it wrong. He's from one of the islands. He's gone for this amazing kind of Western background. This actually looks like something that you see on the way out towards Death Valley or Vegas or something like that. Love this background choice. It totally matches the car as well. So looking really cool. So I love the vibe, this kind of misty or dusty atmosphere, and really kind of looks very cool. I want to know where this is. This is really nice. Okay, let's zoom in and have a little look. Okay, so you've added some depth of field onto the car as well. I get that, it's nice, it matches the background, but I think it's a little bit too heavy on the car. This area around the rear of the car looks just as blurry as the background in the distance, whereas I think it would be a little bit more held. Nice lighting on the side of the car though, can't argue with that. And I like the fact that you've got this mixed light source. You've got lights up here as well. So you've made real sense of how the lighting would affect the car if it was actually there. So I really like that. I think the blurring on the foreground is a little bit heavy, so probably dial that one down a little bit. But let's go back in and have a look at the car. Yeah, this is all really nicely lit. You've punched out the windows, which is nice, and then gone back and stripped on some reflections over the top as well. So that's really nice. But yeah, for me, I just think the amount of blur that's on the car and in the foreground is a little bit too much. So I probably would have dialed that back a little bit, because you run the risk of making the car look a little bit like a toy. And if you just dial it back a little bit, I think it would look super nice. But I love this choice of background. I super love the composites in this. So it's super nice. Really cool. Nice work. Cheers, Nick. We have Ollie of Ollie O Media, a guy that I've met a couple of times at drifting events around the UK, back when I used to live there. He's a very talented photographer, so let's have a look at what he's done. Now he's gone for this kind of like big soft spotlight over the car. It looks super nice actually, really controlled background. The car looks really well lit. I like the way from front far side to rear far side as well. It's very nicely lit. Good choice of reflections down the side as well. And you've actually refined how the ground reflected in the side of the car. That's some nice work there. Wheels and tyres look great. You've desaturated the floor and matched that in the tyre tread as well. That's nice. Front splitter looks great, and the grille and the hood looks great. That's a really nice choice of reflections to the hood, so great job there. Yeah, Ollie, not much to say on this one, but you smashed it, mate. Nice work. Okay, we have Paul from Paul Cook Photography. He's just moved from England to Canada, so I hope he's doing well up there. Let's have a look at his image. Nice controlled background, love the way that looks. Paint looks lovely and rich. Again, like chocolatey Marmite. You could just get in there and eat some of that. I mean, chocolate and Marmite's probably not the best together. I see you've actually puffed out the suede line, so you've made it more aggressive. So rather than just being like a slight angle change, you've actually rolled it out a little bit, giving it that classic car look. And I actually like the way that's done. That's looking pretty cool. Tyres look good. Wheels look good. So not overlit, not overly bright. The front fender looks great, so does the rear. Front splitter looks nice, really well handled. Yeah, the rim of the car is not too overlit either. I like the way that hood looks. Interior nicely handled, not too overcompensated. And the roof of the car as well. Good amount of saturation and good amount of contrast in there. Yeah, Paul, not many comments at all. That looks really nice, and nice work, man. Okay, we have Richard of Richard Pierce Photo. And there's definitely a theme about his one going on here. If I'm not mistaken, that looks to be like the coronavirus, which is screwing us all over at the moment. But I like to see that Richard is embracing it and having some fun with it. The world is temporarily closed. He's written up on one of these crates as well. I didn't notice that first time round. I like that a lot. Yeah, great work, Richard. Love the background. I like the fact you got creative with it and you started bringing in some topical elements into the shot as well. That's really quite nice. I don't think I'll have many comments on this one because looking at the car, it looks pretty damn nice. Nice choice of light streaks down the side of the car. Good choice of reflections. Looks to me, Mike, you might have pushed some colour into the rocker panel down on the bottom of the car. Maybe that's a bit heavy-handed. I probably would have dialed that down a little bit and matched the colours a little bit more to how it is in the side door. But other than that, that looks nice. I love how the front and rear fenders look. Wheels look really nice. Contact patches look great as well. It gets a little bit light on the shadow underneath the car. I probably would have darkened that down a little bit and kept the contrast the same because as a shadow is close to an object, it will be darker. So coming around the front of the car, yeah, the front splitter looks really nice. Maybe it's a little bit brightened over here. I think that might be because you've added some haze. So what I mean is the front splitter, it looks like it's popping off the ground a little bit too much there. So I probably would have dialed that in a little bit more. But love the way the front splitter looks. Other than that, front grille looks great. The hood as well, that looks super nice. And look at that far front fender as well. That's looking really nice. So yeah, Richard, solid job. Love the fact you put some topical elements into that, you know, kind of making fun of this coronavirus because some of us have got to laugh, haven't we? But yeah, great job, man. Nice work. We have my friend Roger, Rodriguez Reeves. So I've known Roger for many years, been on a few stag do's with him. He's a top bloke and he's an architect by trade. So definitely not a light painter or retoucher, but this is his effort and he's gone completely nuts. So because he's a scumbag like I am, he's got the car doing a burnout, which I fully endorse. So nice work, Rod. Love the fact you got all this light pluming around the car. Let's go in and have a look. I would have liked to have seen you spin the wheels, otherwise that might be clutch that's smoking away rather than tyres. But yeah, nice job, man. I guess it could have stopped doing its burnout. And have you put a driver in there? Not that I can see. It looks like you might have darkened down the interior to hide that. But love the mood that's going on. There's some kind of crazy wild flares going on the side of the car. Headlight. I just noticed your license plate, mate. Cock sucks. You're a fucking dick. Well, I'm not saying any more on that, Rod. Nice job, I guess. Moving on. Whew. Okay, we have Sean. Sean takes pictures on Instagram. Now, I love what you've done here, man. Background looks dope. That looks really fucking cool. Love the way that looks. Love the fact that you put a Datsun sign in there as well. Man, that thing is cool. I want that on my wall. That is a really nice looking background. Alright, let's go in and have a look at the car. So, zooming in here. Okay, the paint looks a little bit overworked for my liking. It looks like you've painted out some light streaks and reflections and then painted your own ones in there. So, personal for me, that's a bit over the top, but I like what you're going for. I like what you're trying to achieve. I like the fact that you're trying something different. You've also made a big deal out of this swage line, doing a similar thing to what Paul Cook did as well by introducing that kind of like puffed out look. So that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, like for me, like the telltale signs, like you got some smooth areas and you got some noisy areas. So if you're going to paint stuff out, just add a little bit of noise in there just to help bed it into what's beneath. Color consistency, the paint actually looks a little bit too open for me, so it's actually more contrasty than that in real life. So you will get this like orange and the metallic highlights, but as it starts rolling off into darkness, it goes a bit more brown. So unless you were there, you wouldn't really have known that. But as a product correctness kind of thing from me, I would say that you need to just balance that in a little bit. And your reflections of the ground, they are actually orange, whereas the ground is actually more of a teal colour. So I probably would have balanced that as well. But other than that, the paint's looking pretty cool. I like the fact that you've gone for this new different highlights in there. It's pretty cool. Wheels look really nice. Front and rear fenders look pretty cool as well, though there's some strangeness going on the rear one. Let's have a look at the front of the car. The front splitter looks pretty nice. Some nice contrast in there. Some unwanted reflections, I'd say, on the far side of it. I probably would have selected a mask around the front grille and given that a bit of a crunch, like an S-curve, if you will, just to punch the highlights a little bit, but then darken it down. Because at the moment it looks a little bit grey and a little bit old and worn out. And as you can see, the rest of the car is very kind of premium and new and glossy. So yeah, I probably would have changed that a little bit. I'm not sure, looking at it, what colour you were going for on the hood. To me, it kind of reads as like a dark grey, or maybe thought it was carbon fibre. Again, you wouldn't really know unless you were there looking at it, but I probably would have stuck with keeping it as black as possible. But I don't mind the fact that you kind of match it tonally to the carbon fibre. That's pretty cool look. And Tony, if you're watching, you should definitely get a carbon fibre hood for your Datsun. I think that would really set off the front end quite nicely. But yeah, let's come back out and have a look at the rest of it. Man, I do love that neon. That is really cool. So thank you, Sean. Great work. Really like that. Okay, well that is it, guys. Thank you so much for all of you that submitted. I am actually blown away by the amount of you that submitted. Over 50 submissions I had, which is about 10 times more than I thought I was going to get. So you can imagine how stoked I was when I saw my inbox full of all your lovely submissions. Now, I'm sorry that I couldn't get round to doing all of yours. I mean, it would have taken a couple of hours to film this. In fact, I've actually been filming solidly for about 2.5 hours now, so I can't put that up on YouTube. So I'm so sorry that I've had to condense it down. But hopefully the ones that I chose will give you guys the most knowledge and things to think about going forwards, and they'll be the most that you can learn learn. Well done for everyone for entering. I'm so happy that you guys took part. It really does, it's humbling for me, so thank you so much for that. And if you guys enjoyed this, then perhaps we'll do more of this in the future. We'll do some more challenges, and I'll give away more of my raw files, and we can see how you guys get on with editing some different images. So let me know down below if you guys enjoyed this and what you'd like to see more of in the future. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't already, please do subscribe, and if you want to see more of these, then make sure you follow me on Instagram, as that's where I'll be handing them out. So I am at Shooting Dave on Instagram, and as always guys, I shall see you in the next one. See ya. Oh, completely fucking missed.